On a still night somewhere in the remote Australian desert, the stars seem to hang low enough to touch. Above the dark horizon, the familiar patterns of the Southern Cross and Orion sit quietly until they don't. A line of stars suddenly brightens and then shifts, as if invisible hands are pushing them into new positions. Elders gathered around a campfire fall silent. One turns to the others and murmurs, "The Ngarra are moving the sky again." Their faces are lit by starlight and flames as they watch in awe. By the time we're done tonight, you'll understand why so many desert clans believe there are sky spirits controlling the stars, and how those stories carry more than just myth. So if that idea lights a spark of curiosity, smash that like button and stick around. You're about to hear tales that'll change the way you look up at night. For tens of thousands of years, Aboriginal peoples have looked at the night sky and seen more than constellations. To the Walpiri, Pichanchajara, Arrernte and many other nations, the stars are ancestors, lawgivers and timekeepers. Among the stories of giant emus and sisters fleeing hunters, there is another thread, stories of entities called Ngarra, sky spirits who not only inhabit the heavens but actually steer them. These beings are said to rearrange stars, dim some and brighten others, and use the sky to communicate with people on the ground. In 1939, an anthropologist named Olive Pink recorded an account from an elder near Uendumu. The man told her that, one night, the stars over the Spinifex plains moved like men walking, and that it was the Ngarra showing the people when to start certain ceremonies. Similar recollections appear in the diaries of missionaries and explorers, descriptions of elders pointing to a star that had dimmed and explaining that the Ngarra were displeased. Modern scientists have found that oral traditions like these often correspond with real astronomical observations. For example, Aboriginal star watchers noted the variability of red giant stars such as Betelgeuse, Aldebaran and Antares long before Western astronomers TPs. www. Espil.com. Ayu. Night TV. Article. Stars that vary in brightness shine in the oral traditions of Aboriginal Australians. YV4 Canafir. They also use the position of the emu in the sky, a dark constellation formed by dust lanes in the Milky Way, to mark seasons. When only the head of the emu rose above the horizon in March, it signaled the start of the emu breeding season. TTTPS. Noyun Talking Stories, Oregon, Edu 2023, 7-12, Camilla Roy, Uahlai. Astronomy, US Stars. Text, the %20, EMU %20, in %20, the %20 sky. Eggs Fetu 20 will %20, soon %20 B %20 available. Those pieces of evidence suggest that when elders speak of the Ngarra moving stars, they might be combining vivid spiritual imagery with careful observation. In this video, we'll dive into some of those stories from different tribes, compare them with what astrophysicists and ethnographers have found, and consider the deeper meanings behind a sky that seems alive. Get ready for encounters with luminous beings, unexpected scientific parallels, and a few loops that'll keep you guessing until the end. Let's start with the Walpiri people of the Tanami Desert. According to a story told by old Toby Morris to researcher Bill Harney in the 1960s, one night in the dry season, a group of young men sat outside their camp after a hunting trip. They looked up and noticed that Orion's belt was flickering, first brighter, then dimmer. The old men leaned in and said, "The Ngarra are talking." They explained that when those three stars twinkled like that, it meant the dry spell would soon break. Sure enough, a week later, a thunderstorm rolled in across the plain. In Walpiri cosmology, the Ngarra adjust the brightness of stars to signal changes in weather. Modern astronomers know that stars do sometimes vary in brightness over days or weeks. Betelgeuse, for instance, is a red supergiant that can change its luminosity perceptibly to the naked eye over a period of months. www.sbs.com, a UNITV article, Stars that Vary in Brightness Shine in the Oral Traditions of Aboriginal Australians, YVF 4K Fear. There are also atmospheric effects that can make stars appear to flash or move, especially when you're watching from a hot desert where warm air currents shimmer. But for Toby Morris and his mates, the twinkling was a message. After the storm, the old men led the young hunters to gather honey ants. It turned out the brief rains had awakened the insects. "The Ngarra told us," Toby said later, "so we knew what to do." One of the most striking parts of this tale is the personal connection to cosmic events. Notice how the Ngarra aren't remote gods, but active participants in daily life. The story uses a loop. The stars change, elders interpret, the community acts, and then confirms the interpretation. That closed loop builds trust in both the elders' knowledge and the myth itself. It's a clever storytelling technique. By the time Toby tells his children or grandchildren, they're hooked. They want to know what will happen next time the stars flicker. An analogy helps here. Imagine a traffic light. When it turns orange, drivers slow down. No one needs to explain that the bulb is powered by electricity and controlled by a computer. You simply read the signal and respond. In the same way, the Walpiri treat the stars as signals operated by the Ngarra. They don't need to understand stellar physics, they trust the pattern. And just like ignoring an orange light can lead to trouble, ignoring the Ngarra's signals can bring consequences. That connection between celestial signs and everyday behavior forms the backbone of many Ngarra stories, as we'll see in the next part. Further south, among the Anangu people around Uluru, the Ngarra take on a slightly different role. Anangu elders tell of a time when the seven sisters, the Pleiades, disappeared from the sky for several nights. In their version, the sisters had been hidden by the Ngarra because the men in the community were hunting too aggressively during breeding season. One elder named Kupanya shared with a young schoolteacher in the 1980s that when he was a boy, the elders used to point at the empty patch of sky where the cluster should be and say, "The spirits have covered them with their cloaks." They would then pause all kangaroo hunting for a week. When the Pleiades reappeared, the men resumed, but with caution. Astronomically, the Pleiades do not disappear, but in certain climates, dust and moisture can obscure them, and sometimes the moon's brightness makes them harder to see. Kupanya explained that the story was less about actual disappearance and more about the moral. The Ngarra, in this case, were not just controllers of stars, but guardians of balance. Their covering of the sisters was a visual metaphor for hiding resources until people remembered to respect limits. Another Anangu narrative links the Ngarra to the emu in the sky. During the season when the emu appears to be running across the Milky Way, the elders say the Ngarra set its feet on fire to make it move quickly, which is why you see red stars at certain positions. When the emu sits around June and July, the Ngarra calm it down, and the community knows the male birds are on nest tipis. There's talking stories. Warregon, Edu, 2023, 712, Camilla Roy, Uahalai, Astronomy, Y, Da, Text, in %20 June %20, and %20 July %2 %20 the, of %20 incubation %20, ISO 20 performed %20 by. This dual role, controlling star positions and teaching ecological rhythms, illustrates how the Ngarra concept adapts to local environments. The Anangu stories also emphasize that the Ngarra communicate through dreams. Kupanya told the teacher that he once dreamed of a bright figure placing stars on a nighttime table. The next morning, a rainbow appeared around the moon, which elders took as confirmation of the Ngarra's message. In this interplay of dreams, celestial signs and practical actions, we see how personal experiences and communal rituals intertwine. The narrative continues by hinting at a hidden truth, that the same stories might link distant tribes. This hint acts as a loop, encouraging listeners to find out whether the Ngarra stories match others across the continent. The next topic explores that link. Up to this point, we've talked about stars changing and constellations disappearing. Let's dig deeper into how these stories might overlap with astrophysics. Many stars actually vary in brightness. A famous example is Betelgeuse in Orion. In late 2019 and early 2020, this star dimmed significantly before brightening again, causing excitement among astronomers. Aboriginal traditions contain stories of glowing eyes that dim and brighten. An elder from the Western Desert told a researcher in the early 2000s that when the red eye blinks, they begin preparing for bush tomato harvest. Researchers like Ray Norris suggest that such tales encode observations of variable starched peas. www.sbs.com AU-NITV article, Stars that vary in brightness shine in the oral traditions of Aboriginal Australians, YVF4K infer. Similarly, meteors and comets could underlie Ngarra narratives about moving stars. Some meteors produce electrophonic sounds, audible hissing or clicking, at the same time as their light flash TPs turn talking stories. Warrigon. Edu 2023 07-12 Camilla Roy Wahlayai Astronomy till Text the percent 20 emas 20% 20 the percent 20 sky eggs cent 20 will percent 20 soon percent 20 b percent 20 available. Imagine seeing a ball of fire streak across the sky while hearing a sizzling noise. It would be easy to interpret that as a spirit moving or speaking. In fact, one Yolngu story describes hot coals thrown by the sky people that whistle as they fall, warning hunters of approaching storms. The recognition of indigenous star knowledge by contemporary organizations further bridges myth and science. In 2016, the International Astronomical Union officially approved 4 Aboriginal star names: Lararang, Wirran, Ginan, and Unurgunite TPS. www.sbs.com AU-NITV article, The Stories Behind Aboriginal Star Names Now Recognized by the World's Astronomical Body Z8OIA2DJX. Ginan refers to a star in the Southern Cross known to the Wardaman people as a possum in a tree. The IAU's adoption acknowledges that Aboriginal astronomers have been naming stars, tracking their movements, and constructing complex cosmologies for millennia. When we talk about Ngarra controlling the stars, we're acknowledging a worldview where human observation, ethics, and the cosmos are inseparable. At this point in the video, the viewers might start to sense a pattern. Stories about the Ngarra are not isolated myths, but part of a broader system of sky watching. The loop we've opened at the end of this section is: how do the Ngarra's messages affect community behavior, and how does this relationship reflect the core values of these cultures? The final topic brings these threads together. Beyond the intrigue of moving constellations, the Ngarra stories carry profound lessons about social and environmental stewardship. In many of them, the Ngarra adjust the stars to remind people of their obligations. For example, the Arrante tell of a time when a group ignored the elders' instruction to leave waterholes untouched. The Ngarra responded by making an entire section of the Milky Way dim for several nights. Elders interpreted this as anger, stopped the offending activities, and held a public apology ceremony. When the brightness returned, everyone celebrated. These narratives teach that resources must be managed collectively. The stars are seen as a cosmic scoreboard. If you overhunt, they darken. If you share, they shine. This feedback loop internalizes ecological ethics. It's not that the Ngarra need stars to get things done. It's that people need stories to remember and respect the delicate balance of arid environments. Analogies help translate this idea. Imagine if your phone battery icon changed color based on how kindly you treated others. Every time you helped someone, the battery turned green. Every time you ignored someone, it faded. You'd quickly learn to link your behavior with a visible signal. The Ngarra stories perform a similar function, linking behavior to cosmic signs. Even in the modern world, there's value in this approach. Many of us live disconnected from the natural cues that once guided our ancestors. We look at screens more than stars. Yet hearing how the Ngarra adjust the heavens to reinforce social and environmental rules reminds us that knowledge can be encoded in more imaginative ways than scientific charts. It makes us wonder, what signals are we missing in our own world? Are there modern Ngarra, warnings about climate change or species loss, that we ignore because they're not part of our stories? With that thought, we turn to our final reflection. Over the last 15 or so minutes, we've explored tales from the Warlpiri, Anangu and Arente about the Ngarra, sky spirits said to control the stars. We saw how elders interpret unusual stellar behavior as messages, how these interpretations guide when to hunt, plant or hold ceremonies, and how they embed moral and ecological codes. We discovered parallels with modern astrophysics, variable stars, meteor sounds, and official recognition of indigenous star names. While we can appreciate these stories as poetic metaphors or as early observations of celestial phenomena, they also reveal something deeper, a worldview where cosmic order and human ethics are intertwined. In this vision, the night sky is not a passive backdrop, but an active teacher. The Ngarra move stars, so communities remember to move carefully on Earth. Next time you're under a clear southern sky, pause, watch how the stars flicker, and imagine ancestors rearranging them. Ask yourself what messages you might be missing. Perhaps the stories of the Ngarra aren't so different from the warnings we get today. Subtle shifts in climate patterns, species counts, or social harmony. Recognizing these signs and acting on them is how cultures have survived for millennia. If these stories of sky spirits and shifting stars sparked your sense of wonder, let us know. Hit the like button, share this video with a mate who loves mysteries, and leave a comment telling us whether you've ever felt the night sky speak to you. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next deep dive into the secrets of the universe and the wisdom of its oldest storytellers. Thanks for staying with us, and keep your eyes on the stars.